Welcome back to Hasbro's Hide. It's been a long time since I've worked on this project, but this is our 1903 Springfield, our 1942 1903 Springfield, and we've been trying to get this barrel to fit properly. Had to be some lathe work done on the end of the new Criterion barrel, and so a toolmaker, a friend of mine, was able to do that for me. Now he was able to do underneath here. There's a cross pin, okay, for locating the sight fore aft, and somewhat from allowing it to clock a little bit. But there's another groove up here that was a problem, and that is this one. And this is another retaining pin to help the sight collar from clocking or turning around the barrel. And the problem with that one is it just was really difficult for him with the tools he had to locate that and to cut it, because this was really done with some sort of jig, and it's not even straight. In fact, it bends off at an angle, and even within that angle it's drilled. So I'm sure this is some sort of a jig they have with a hand drill operation in there for that. So duplicating that has been a problem. Just locating it on the barrel accurately has been a problem, until I realized that this really won't be that difficult. And I'll show you what I'm going to do to resolve that. So the pin that goes in here is a very mild steel. Again, it's just to keep this, it's a secondary lock as well to keep this sight collar from being able to move around the barrel. So with a mild steel pin, you can be off a little bit and still drive it into this. You could probably use a brass pin and drive it in there, because when you take the sight collar off, if you ever have to again, well, it's going to be driven off this way. And so as long as your tool has clearance, which I made a tool for this, clearance for this, well, then you can drive the outside of the collar forward and it'll leave the pin behind. So if you follow that, then it's not going to be a big deal. So what I'm going to do is go back to my muzzleloading days and skills and engrave this line. And so what I've done, I checked it a couple of different ways. You can't measure really well without having a lathe and indicating it from this extractor groove here to where that's going to be. So I made a simple tape jig off the original one and laid it over and lined things up and got an idea where that is. And so that wasn't too bad, but it wasn't perfect what to do. So what I was able to do, thinking of different ways to make a jig, I just have some balsa, because what I also do then is model aircraft work. And so the balsa lines up straight on the edge of this extractor slot or groove, and then I based it on the original barrel, made a mark, and then I don't know if you can see that well or not, but now we're lined up more or less right on that groove. And I got the angle coming off of it figured out. So what I'm going to do is take an engraver tool. Now this is really the old-fashioned way of doing things, a square engraver's tool, and come along here and do something like this. And I'll just show a little bit of this. But since barrel is a mild steel, it's not real hard, I can come along and just engrave the center line. If you can see that, I'll actually come back in this direction because of the way it's held in the vise. But I can engrave the center line in that, progressively wider and deeper. Then I can come in, if I want to, either with a rotary tool or just assemble the sight collar on there and come back then and drill the corresponding side to this pinhole. I don't think it has to be that accurate. I can probably use a rounded gouge in the bottom of that thing as well. But you can imagine then you're just going to simply go right down the center of that line, no big deal. Relieve some steel. Then we'll put the sight collar on and finish it up. So, it's kind of, I'd rather be doing it on a mill, but it's, difficult to index and get this angle off just right, etc. So I thought making a whole series of jigs. So this will be a good way to do it. And it's not a super critical part of that. We just have to make sure we keep the sight square, which the front one already does, and it's been milled in. And then we come back in then and engrave this in. So let me get that done, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. All right, now hopefully you can see the groove that I've cut in here. It matches well the original one. If you can see it here, I can't get them both easily in the same view, but it's in the same position relative to this slot, back to this, and roughly the same angle, and it's close to the same diameter. So what I ended up doing for the diameter was, like I said, I used a square engraver and engraved the line till I got to a certain depth. Then I used a hand file used for fine metal work on, in my case, muzzleloading rifles, and used that to file and shape the slot just a little bit. And then I came back in with this a small lithium-ion Dremel, but then use the Dremel bit just slightly smaller than the original size. And so you can lay that in there and kind of work it into that and let it ride up, but being very careful in protecting the threads here as well as the shoulder. And so it's actually done really well. So I think it would be very, very close to the original, certainly close enough that when we put the collar on and align it, that I can run another drill bit down through here and just clean it up if I need to for the final pit. So yeah, so not too bad, not too bad. So now we'll move on to doing the sight collar. Now the sight collar will come on from the muzzle end, okay? So it comes on. Here's the slot, right? If you can see that right there, that's the slot that's going to line up with this and have a pin driven into it. So that has to come on like this from the rear of the barrel forward. And we have a tool that my friend the toolmaker made before me here. And what it does is it fits just inside of this front sight collar, because this sight collar is a very, very thin edge, and you don't want to be driving on it to drive this thing forward onto the barrel. And so this sight collar will sit right down in there. It's a good snug fit. It slides over the barrel, and I have a pipe then that comes in over this diameter, and you can drive it down the barrel without even touching the barrel. So let me get this set up. I don't know if I can show it well on camera, but you can imagine here the sight collar fitting down inside of here, a pipe on this end, and this whole thing slides over the barrel and doesn't touch the barrel. And then we just simply drive this up and clock it and align the holes. So let me get that going and we'll see how it does. All right, so the sight collar's on. I still have to install the pin here and the cross pin here, but everything is lined up pretty well. I will go ahead and lightly drill this. You see there's just a little bit more material here to remove, but no big deal. And protect the threads and lightly drill that. And, you know, a soft pin will go in there just fine. I may just drive a brass pin in there. We'll see, I got some fairly hard brass. And I have the original pins anyway that came out, so we'll certainly put them in back up front here. So once this is done, I'll thread the action in, make sure it's timed right. There's some alignment marks on here. And get that on there. And then right now I'm going to go ahead and order the finished chamber reamer, because this is chambered short when you get it from Criterion. So I'll get that ordered and we'll be able to move on. But at least to this point, made some progress. Sight collar's back on. Just drive a couple pins, put the action back on, and chamber it, and away we go.